welcome to Android Dialogues, where we have bite-sized conversations with people in the Android community. I'm Huyen now, and I'm speaking with
Joe Birch.
And we're currently in Denver for 360 AnDev, where both Joe and I are speaking. Joe, where are you based, and how did you get started in Android?
So I'm based in Brighton. I work remotely, and I got started in Android when I was at university. I think it was back in like 2011.
Nice.
It's kind of like random. One of my lecturer's friends needed an app. So I was like, oh yeah, real world project. So I thought that'd be cool. Hadn't done Android before. Didn't really know what I was doing, but it was a great way to sort of get stuck into it and learn as much as I can.
Nice. And you work for Buffer now?
Yep, I work for Buffer. Yeah, work on that Android team.
So I guess Android things is now kind of a big thing, and we kind of are living in this whole like IoT and all the connected things world. A couple months ago, I saw this amazing Medium post of this really fantastic Android Things project, which was done by Joe. And I guess, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about your Android Things project?
Yeah, so the project is called BrailleBox. I couldn't think of anything better than that. But it's essentially a Braille newsreader. This little box has a button on it, and you push the button and it hits this API called News API, and it gets the latest news article from the BBC. And then what that does when I get it back is I've got like some mapper classes which convert those letters to Braille sequences, and then some pins pop up and down to read it out in Braille.
And so actually, I guess someone who knew how to read Braille could just hold their hand on top of the box and just...
Yeah, so you can, usually with Braille, you swipe your finger across like an embossed bit of paper and you can feel it, but this is like a refreshable display. So they pop up and down and you can just feel it. So it's a bit bigger than it would be probably, than it needs to be, but that was the way to keep it cheap.
One thing I absolutely adored about your post is that you were just incredibly detailed. And I think that's one thing with Android Things. I think we tend to think about like these amazing projects, and it's a little bit hard to kind of figure out where to get started. But like Joe's post had amazing like diagrams, and you had like circuit diagrams and all the components and everything, and kind of showing where things went. Like, how did you, I guess, get started? Like, how do you get started with Android Things?
So a couple of years ago, I started off playing around with Arduinos. I built a couple of projects. One was called a Tortuino, which was like a vivarium monitor. So it monitored my tortoise's movement and light and humidity.
Oh, cool.
That was kind of a little throwaway project. And then I also built something similar to this. It was a sort of a Braille reader, but it was just using the command line. So you type text into a command line, and then that would send it to the Arduino. So it's a similar thing, but it wasn't a prototype. It was just like a bare bones component thing. So it wasn't really that exciting. And it was written in C#, so I didn't really know what I was doing.
So is there anything particular about Things, or I guess any kind of new updates and kind of like connected objects that have made it easier for you to kind of make the BrailleBox like happen?
So I think definitely the fact that we can use so much that we already know to work with Android things, like being able to use Java or Kotlin was like a huge advantage, because I didn't have to worry about learning a new language, and I can use what I already knew.
Definitely.
And RX Java and stuff.
What does programming in Android Things look like? Because it feels like so different than what we normally do, because we normally have screens, but obviously your BrailleBox doesn't. So what does programming in Android Things look like?
Well, we still have activities, and we can still do things mostly the same that we do before, but yeah, we're not guaranteed to have a screen on Internet of Things devices. So we don't have access to things like notifications and like runtime permissions and things like, our phones come with like the contacts app and messages. We don't have any of that. And another one of the things to cater for that is we have a IoT launcher intent filter, so that we can declare an activity that is to be launched automatically when the device boots. So which in the case of BrailleBox, I have like my main activity that launches once you turn the device on. So you don't have to worry about having a screen or not. Did
you have a lot of experience with like electronics or, I don't know, like fabrication at all before you get started?
So I did electronics at A-level, but I did quite badly. It was the whole theory. I didn't really get on with the theory side of things, but I loved the practical side of it, like playing around with circuits, and my dad's got a background in electronical engineering, so
you had some support, yeah. Like tech help.
Yeah, and I think in like year 11 I did resistant materials, which is like DIY stuff like cutting wood and boxes. But that was years ago. So.
But for anybody who's out there who may not have had like as much experience, do you think that's a barrier, or do you think that is it easy to pick up? Like, can you pick up certain things like, I don't know, online or on YouTube or something?
Yeah, so things like where in terms of like fabrication, like the box and stuff was just drill and just like playing around. I think I screwed up a couple of times and had to buy a couple more boxes, but you know, the components are cheap, and it's a good way a good thing to play around with and do something different. That's another thing that I like about Android things is it's not just the coding. Like the coding took less time than the building the thing, so it's nice to get away from the screen and do something different.
So I actually asked Joe to bring like all of his components all the way from Brighton to Denver so that we could show you all. Joe, what is this component that you actually brought with us with you?
So this is a solenoid, and it's essentially an electromagnet. So when you give it a current, it turns on and pulls in this little pin. So obviously that ball doesn't come with it, but so when you give it a current, it pops down, and when the current's released, it pops back up.
And so that's how you're able to kind of, I guess, make the Braille, I guess, what do you call it, glyphs or symbols or?
Yeah, I'd call them sequences. I think that's probably a better term.
So when the current's off, I guess the ball's down, so that's like a.
So on these ones, when the current's off, it's raised. So when you give it a current, it pops down.
Oh, okay, I see.
You can get ones that are the opposite, but they're more expensive.
Oh, neat. And I think you actually did a little bit of hacking on those, right?
Yeah, I brought some wooden balls from a craft shop and put them on top, just because I thought, just for like for a user's hand, it would be nicer to feel like a smooth wooden ball rather than that metal plate.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I like it. You're thinking about UX and ergonomics on top of everything else. It's a really holistic project. I like it. So yeah, was it really expensive or?
So these were about £2.50 each. I think that's maybe like $5. Not really.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And these pack of 6 was like £3, and the wooden box was about £8, and then the other electrical components are pretty cheap. Resistors
so really
diodes.
Not that bad. That's really cool.
So I think overall with the Raspberry Pi, probably about £65. So not too bad at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. What is like the most challenging part about working with like, I don't know, like components like this? Is it like wiring it up and making sure that things are connected, or is it just actually programming it, or the actual programming side?
I think because I don't have too much electronics knowledge. There was one point where these were getting, I think they were on too long or were overheating, and there was some build up of some stuff on these pins, and they were sort of starting to rub. And I think it was overheating. So I got my dad to help me with some resistors, and it sort of fixed the problem.
Oh, nice.
And because they hold a charge, I think it was just getting too hot.
Oh, wow! Like we're debugging all kinds of like new things. Like, so in case other folks out there who are doing Android things don't have your dad around, are there usually like places that can you just like Google? Like, is this pretty easy to Google or look up kind of like debug? Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff online, and even like for example, I've got some diodes in the circuit, and I don't know if they need to be there, but so diodes restrict the flow, the direction of current. And because these hold a charge, I was worried about the charge going back to my Pi. So I stuck some diodes in there just in case.
Oh, so you wouldn't fry your Pi.
But
neat.
I don't know if they need to be there, but I think it's better than the opposite.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So you actually mentioned kind of off camera that your project got picked up for Android experiments.
Yep.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Looking forward to seeing it on there.
Oh, well, we are too. So, I mean, I guess, like, what's kind of, like, been the best thing about kind of, because it seems like it's obviously a little bit of money investment and a lot of time, but what's, like, kind of been the best thing about doing this project for you?
It's just having something that's kind of like a prototype of something that could be a real project, and sort of demonstrating what is possible with Android things. And obviously, refreshable Braille displays cost thousands of pounds.
Right.
Obviously, they're smaller and more compact than this, but the fact that this was so cheap to build, I think shows what we could do with this platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the most exciting thing about it for me.
Awesome. And do you have any like tips for anyone who wants to get started?
Just get stuck in and just play around, and don't be put off by, because I think the electronics hardware side of things can be a bit overwhelming, a bit like, I don't know how that works. And even for me, it was a lot of plug and play and just playing around, so just sort of just go with it and just don't be worried. You're not going to burn your house down.
Nice. So just go for it and just give it a shot. Screw up and fix it and try again.
Yeah.
I like that. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Joe. If people wanted to find you on the internet, how can they do that?
So my Twitter's @HiThereJoe, And I've also got Medium, which is the same, medium.com/Joe.
Awesome. And we'll definitely link to your amazing, seriously, it was one of my favorite Medium posts that I've read so far. But you should definitely check it out, especially if you are interested at all in Android things. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you. It's been great chatting.
Oh, it's been awesome. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Hey, I just wanted to pop in real quick and plug a podcast that Joe Birch is producing with another one of our guests, David González. The podcast is called The Remote Dev, and on it, Joe and David and their guests talk about methodologies, experiences, and team collaboration when you're working remotely as a developer. So, full disclosure, I've been a guest in the podcast, and I had a really great time talking to Joe and David about my experiences being a remote developer. So if you're a remote developer as well, or if you're just curious about what the remote dev life is like, you should definitely listen. It's available on SoundCloud, Pocket Casts, and iTunes. I'll put a little link in the show notes, but you should definitely check it out.